Are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, this might be the latest we've ever gotten to rapid fire, but let's roll, baby. Let's
My,
go.
my goodness. You're right. We said we were going to be here for a while
Hey, it's all
tonight.
good, man. I got
But
nowhere to be.
NaNa Osafo-Mensah is the first guy who declared today. We've had 3 transfer portal guys declare for Notre Dame. NaNa Osafo-Mensah was the first. Chris Tyree was the second. Zeke Correll was the third. And we'll get to all of them here again in a second because, again, we've got a bigger live crowd who's kind of jumped in, sits in. Let's start with NaNa since he was the first. Fill in the blank. It's blank that he entered the portal today.
Surprising to a degree. I thought NaNa had a great opportunity to really cash in on some major playing time next year because obviously right now he plays behind Javontae Jean-Baptiste.
Mm-hmm.
And, he still played very well, didn't complain, was a great leader, did all those things. Even though they went to the portal and got somebody over him in the depth chart, he was a true team guy. And I thought he would be ready to step in and be the guy next year. Maybe they've told him that that's not going to be the case. I don't know what the situation is. So it is a little bit surprising and a little bit disappointing at the same time because I was looking forward to seeing NaNa out on the field, wreaking some havoc this year. But I think we all kind of knew the writing on the wall on senior day when, after the game, he was crying. And so that felt like that was probably going to be it. I just didn't think about it, to be honest with you. And it just stinks. Just stinks.
I agree. To me, the initial news of this was a little bit shocking, but at the same time, it's like you do have some young talent coming up behind him. You've got guys like, as Tommy Guns just pointed out, Brennan Vernon. You've got Josh Burnham as well, who is listed as number 3 on the. Burnham was on the depth chart on
both sides.
On both sides back there. Jean-Baptiste had a great season, though. I mean, the best season of his career, and we can save him kind of for another time. But the natural next step would have seemed that NaNa was going to rise to the top of the depth chart next year. Now, again, how much, what was that conversation like between a pending 6th-year guy who did have the most productive season of his career? He had a nice year, made some good plays for him, versus some of those young guys coming in. And now it's time to get some of those young guys that you've been recruiting on the field, how much of that came into it. But I was surprised because of what you were talking about. Like, I felt like it was the next natural step for him to move into probably, a bigger role, most likely a starting role next year. But that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, like I said, so that's disappointing. I like NaNa as a player. I liked him as a kid. And so it's disappointing. I honestly, all 3 announcements today are disappointing. I understand all of them, but they're all disappointing to me.
Yeah. Zeke Correll, the Irish center, announced a little bit more than an hour ago as we speak. And Chris Tyree this afternoon, a couple of hours ago, he announced. And we can talk about both of them. And to me, Tyree is the most disappointing. And when you look at some of these transfers over the last few years, they've lost mostly guys the last 2 or 3 years who were, mid to lower depth chart kind of guys who are getting passed on the depth chart. Excuse me, I had a little sneeze there.
Bless you.
And who weren't getting, some opportunities. So they moved along. Like Logan Diggs, most prominent guy of the last few years.
Yeah.
But look at what the running back room did this year. There was talent there.
Yeah, and that was more about he wanted to be closer to home and all of that. And I get, okay, cool.
Right.
I
mean, the biggest disappointment with Chris Tyree is still this is a guy who's a dynamic playmaker.
Correct.
They needed to get the ball in his hands more, and they just didn't. He touched the ball 29 total times this season, 26 on receptions for over 400 yards, and 3 rushes this year. 29 total times. That's less than 3 times per game for a guy who I know, moved from running back to wide receiver. But the whole thing is like he was supposed to be, like a multi-positional, like a slash type guy. You can do this with him. You can do that with him. You can do all different kinds of things. They had no imagination with Chris Tyree, and they just failed to get him the ball. He needed 3 to 4 times more targets per games than what he ended up with this season. And the guy wants to play in the NFL, and I can't blame him. for just saying, look, it's time to move on, and I'm going to give myself that chance someplace else.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from his standpoint. It's just a shame that Notre Dame never used him the way that they should have. Period. End of discussion. And people are saying it's time for new blood and all that. No, it when you're talking about Chris Tyree, it is not time for new blood. That's the thing about wide receiver. You can get multiple guys on the field, and you can work with multiple guys, and multiple guys can touch the football. And losing Chris Tyree is losing a playmaker. Period. End of discussion. Period.
Thank you, Tommy. I think Tommy is telling me that we agree on something, which I don't think always happens, but he agrees on the 10 to 12 touches per game for Tyree. Absolutely. That's what the targets at least needed to be 10 to 12. And then if you're in the 10 to 12 target range, you're probably getting 7 to 10, balls in his hands by the time all is said and done. And that's what they needed. He ended up with the most yardage on this team. But Rico Flores Jr., a talented guy himself, but he had one more reception than Chris Tyree had this year as a true freshman. And I just, again, like Chris Tyree, I like Rico Flores. I like his future better than I like his present. It is, his present is pretty good, but I like his future a lot more. Chris Tyree just should have had the ball in his hands more this year.
And it doesn't take a great quarterback to hand off and to pitch and to do things of that nature to get Chris Tyree the football.
Yep. Then the other one was Zeke Correll, the center. I'll let you start off. Your thoughts on Zeke Correll entering the portal?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it at the top of the show, but I know people have joined us late, and that's awesome. Thanks for joining us. My thoughts on Zeke Correll are pretty simple, to be honest with you. If I was the head coach, and I don't know that this is the way that it went down, but this is the way it would go down for me, is I would bring Zeke in, and I would tell him, Zeke, thank you so much for what you gave to this university. I'm so happy that you're leaving with your degree. You're a multi-year starter for us. You battled your butt off day in and day out. You were a team guy. You did everything we asked of you. Thank you. But it's time to pass the torch. And if you want to use your next year of eligibility someplace else, I encourage you to do it. But your time at Notre Dame is done. And, I'm giving him a huge hug and then escorting him out the door. I mean, that's just how I would operate, because we have had the luxury of seeing Ashton Craig do what he's been doing the last 2 games. And he's been pretty darn good. And you can see the future of this offensive line and how athletic they are, how quick they are, how strong, how big, all of those things. You can see it. You can see it. And that's not always the case, right? We don't usually get to see these things, but because of the unfortunate, news of the concussion and all of those things with Zeke, we've been able to see that for the last 2 games. And that's the conversation I would have with Zeke. He did everything in his power to do what he needed to do at Notre Dame, and I would thank him for that. But in this case, it is time for the new blood. In this case, it's different with every player. It's not that way with Chris Tyree, but it is that way with Zeke.
Agree with everything you said. Zeke Correll did a great job in his time as Notre Dame's starting center. I do believe, though, that like I said, I really like what we've seen from Ashton Craig in these couple games, from a physicality standpoint, from a size standpoint, to be able to, to kind of hold and also move that center of the line. I really like what we've seen of him as the anchor in there. So it's, nothing but the best for all of those guys. And of course, Zeke Correll included. Coach D's Burner asks if Kristofic is back. Well, we haven't seen an announcement yet. He has eligibility remaining. I don't know.
We're all going to find out together. That's the thing, folks. Like, we all find out together because they all announce on social media.
Yeah. So, they let them make their announcements on their own.
It's not like we get a list of guys and that we have to keep secret. Like, that's not how this works, and, sometimes we have sources in a family or something like that. But for the most part, we all find out when you all find out. So we don't know the answer to that.
So a couple of different things from Chris Galloway. And he says, so we're back to blaming the OC. And he was talking about that when we were having the Chris Tyree conversation, like right when we moved to the Zeke conversation. And then he asked, what's the difference between Zeke and Tyree? And are we blaming the OC? Not necessarily, again, there's a combination of a lot of things.
Plenty of blame to go around.
But if I were in charge of running the offense and I had Chris Tyree versus really young but inexperienced and also talented guys that I had. And I've got a guy like Chris Tyree who has made the investment, and a big investment, in moving from running back to wide receiver and all the things that he could potentially do. Again, like, you don't have to look far. Like, look at the NFL, look at other places around college football. If you've got a guy, like everyone wants to say he is him and all that stuff, that is your primary read. And, like, it's not that hard for Sam Hartman just to take the snap of the football, make the drop in rhythm, look Tyree, first read. If it's there, you go to him. If it's not, then you go through your progressions. If Chris Tyree was the first read each time, he very easily could have had the targets and touches that we were talking about, because I guarantee there would have been many times that he was open.
Oh,
that
yeah.
that he wasn't getting the football. But that's not how they ran this offense. And as we've talked about earlier in the show, there are things that have to be addressed about the way they run this offense. There's no doubt about that. And in terms of the difference between Tyree and Correll, I mean, to me, Tyree has a much higher upside in terms of the NFL. Zeke Correll is a good college center, but it's going to be much more difficult for him to turn that into a professional career than it will be for Chris Tyree, because Chris Tyree has speed. Chris Tyree has skill. Look at the health. I mean, he has stayed relative, healthy for the better part of his career. He doesn't have injury history. So there's a lot more upside, I think, for Chris Tyree than Zeke. That, to me, is the biggest difference.
Absolutely. I mean, Chris Tyree still could be a playmaker for Notre Dame. There's no doubt in my mind. He just could. And so that's the difference. Like, Zeke Correll, he played his career at Notre Dame. It's over. It's time to move on, because we see what is behind him and how good it was. I'm sorry, Chris Tyree is still one of, if not your best slot receiver. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. Okay, you're telling me that Chris Tyree couldn't have run the over route that Greathouse ran, on Saturday's game? Come on now. Like that, he wasn't utilized properly, period. He's a playmaker. You're losing a playmaker. That's the difference to me.
Right. USMA 87 says, love Tyree. How many passes / targets did he drop? Not enough to make up the difference between the targets that he had and the targets we were talking about in the 10 to 12 range. You could probably count on 1.5 hands the drops that he had all year.
I'd say one.
It's
one
not
hand.
that. It's not. I was going to say it's not one per game.
Yeah.
And even if it was one per game, that's only one more touch per game. So, and look, NFL receivers drop balls all the time. A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, two of the best receivers in the game, all of them. Des Bryant, like Des is obviously retired now, but I'm just, CD, whoever, name your receiver. They drop balls all the time, so you can't fall back on that. That to me isn't reason enough.
No, not even close.
Okay, so Audric Estime finished 24 yards short of the Notre Dame single-game rushing record of 262 yards against Stanford Saturday night. It was set by Julius Jones 20 years ago. Estime, of course, didn't play in the fourth quarter, and Freeman was asked afterwards if he knew how close Estime was to the record when they took him out of the game.
No, I didn't know that. If he came up to me and said, Coach, can you leave me in because I'm 24 yards away, it would have been a decision I have to make. But there's two things, right? I want to do what's best for Notre Dame, but also what's best for Audric too, but I did not know that. I knew he was getting close to the single season TD record. I think he set that. I don't know how many rushed for, 200 plus? 238. It's a lot of yards. I don't know what record he was chasing, but that is a heck of a performance.
So what do you think, Vince?
I think there's no reason that a head coach should ever know what a record is during a game. It's not his job. That is not his job, man.
True.
So I have no problem with him not knowing what the rushing record was, because you had no idea that Audric Estime was just going to go beast mode on these guys and just run over them and have almost 200 yards at halftime. Like, there's no way he could have known that going in. Now, he knew the touchdown record going in because you can surmise that he had an opportunity to get 3 to 4 touchdowns. Like, I think that's a logical, record to have in your head because somebody probably mentioned it to him going into the game. So I get, but there is no chance that he knew, and he was honest about it. He had no idea what the single game rushing record was. So, and nobody in the press box knew it either unless they looked it up. And it's not like Marcus Freeman is Googling the rushing record during the game.
I get what you're saying. But there are plenty of times during the game where during the season where Estime has been approaching 100 yards.
That's
and they've
different.
left him. But let me finish.
Let
me finish. Okay. Should the head coach know it off the top of his head? No. But they have a full-time SID who stands on the sideline, whose job I don't know what it is other than standing on the sideline. And if you're the SID and like somebody's telling him that Estime is getting close to 100 yards, just like someone can tell him that he's getting close to, the single game rushing record. I get it. There's an SID down there on the field. If that SID has a job, that's part of it.
You want my honest opinion?
Sure.
As the head coach at Notre Dame or head coach anywhere, the SID comes anywhere near me during a game, I'm punching him in the throat. I don't want that person anywhere near me during a game.
I see that person in the background behind.
I see him in the background all the time, but
they're pretty close. I don't see her
talking to him. I've never seen her talk.
But they can go through another coach, and
that's possible.
Someone's telling him, Vince. Someone's telling them that like Audric Estime is getting close to 100 yards. Like, that's not just something that they pull out of their hat. Someone's letting them know.
Well, that's also like all over the stadium too. Like they roll stats on the stadium scroller all the time. Like I don't know. That one's a little bit different to me. Like an in-game, like total in a game, like that's a little bit different. 100 yards. I also have a problem with them trying to get him 100 yards when he should be out of the game. So I do have a problem.
That's a fair point too, and I felt like there were times he should have been out of the game earlier, but they've left him in there.
Yeah,
and that's exactly right.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and so that's not like a new take. Like we've talked about the fact they've left him in the game far too long in the past. So
at the very least, that SID I'm talking about could talk to the running back coach, and the running back coach can let that information be known.
I gotta tell you, if the way that game was going, if they came up to me at the end of the third quarter and said, hey, he's 25 yards away from the all-time rushing record in a game, I'd have been like, I don't care. We've got all of our number 2s in. I'm not leaving Audric Estime in the game. I'm not doing it. That would have been my response. I'm like, okay, awesome. I don't care. But Notre Dame has proven that they do care about records like that. So I don't know what he would have said if somebody mentioned that to him.
Right.
I would have said, I don't care. Right. That doesn't matter to me.
And ultimately, does it matter that much? No. It's just a record. But the bottom line is Audric Estime is an awesome freaking running back.
Yeah.
And I said last week that, this whole, and everybody knew it, this whole Doak thing was going to be an issue, right? And look what he does. He has the best game of his career the week he's snubbed by the Doak Walker Award. And he's got the single season touchdown record, and he is 5th all time in Notre Dame history in terms of single season rushing.
And, we'd be having a way different conversation if they put him back in the game behind the number 2 offensive line to get 25 yards and he blows out his knee. Like, the number 2s were already in the game. Like, that was done,
Personally, this is another conversation, but personally, in the instance where Jabron Payne was ruled to have fumbled and then they changed it correctly on the instant replay. Look, I get Payne has been short yardage guy and all this different stuff, but with the game that Audric Estime is having, I don't care who your short yardage back is. I want Audric Estime in the game if I'm sniffing the end zone.
Well, he was their 2-minute back. Like, so he was in there because it was the 2-minute drill.
Again, I get all that stuff, but you've got time when you're down there by the goal line to get Estime in if you want to get him in.
That was fair enough. I just don't know that he was physically ready to go back in the game. Like, he asked to come out of the game multiple times on Saturday.
Because he was freaking
He was gassed.
ripping off run after run.
Right.
It's like he's averaging
100%.
10 yards a carry.
Oh, absolutely. There was a reason he was gassed. Everybody's like, how come he's not in every single play? Because he's asking to come out of the game. And people are like,
3 yards.
No
All you're asking for is 3 yards right before halftime, though. I think he can manage that.
Fair enough, but he still would have been 22 short.
Right. Again, we're talking about two different things. I'm saying
you're right.
I would rather have seen him just in that short yardage score another touchdown, than maybe necessarily going for the record. I'm like, again, I don't have a huge issue, but I'm just saying.
It's fun to argue about, though.
Yeah. So a post from X Twitter that I saw this weekend said they hated the play calling after the Angeli interception and that they needed to see him operate the offense. And then, this person also mentioned what we were just talking about, the single season rushing record, but the Angeli play calling specifically. They went from interception to last year's plan of handoff man for Steve Angeli after the interception. So do you buy or sell what this is saying? Should they have let him still run the offense?
I sell it, and here's why. Number one, went out, they tried to throw the ball, and he threw one of the worst interceptions of the year. Like, it's just a terrible throw. Terrible read, terrible throw. And at that point, it's like, no, we're just going to hand off at this point. Let's get out of here. Like, there's no point anymore. Like, I have no problem with it, because what do you not know about Steve Angeli at this point that playing against the twos of a
horrible defense,
of a horrible Stanford team, you're playing against their twos. What is that going to show you that you don't already know about Steve Angeli? He's been extremely consistent every other time he's been in the game, and they've run the offense, and he's taken them down the field, thrown nice touchdowns, like all that. You've got that game film. You see him in practice every day. Like, what do you need to see as a coaching staff? I don't care about the fans, what they need to see. That doesn't matter to me. What do you need to see as a coaching staff that you haven't already seen from Steve Angeli in a mop-up role? Yeah. I have no problem with it. None.
You've seen him run the offense against, as you said, some twos out there and with the twos, and like they weren't going to get any more from seeing him out there running the offense against Stanford. They had already turned the ball over 4 times to that point, and almost a fifth, like we just talked about. Like, an Angeli's interception was the 4th. It was noted. I'll say that. I logged it. Oh, we're going back to handoff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Going back to handoff. But I get it. Like, just get out of there. Run the clock. End the game. Look what the scoreboard said. There was no need to be flinging more balls downfield or, screens or, outs or, wheel plays or whatever they happen to be. Just hand the ball off, let the clock run, and get out of there. That's all that really mattered at that point.
Yep. Brian and I had a nice argument about whether they should have had Kenny Minchie in there running the offense at the end.
And that's what Tyler actually just brought up. And so which side did you lay on?
I was on the side that the backup quarterback is in, not the third string quarterback. And there's no point. I don't personally see the point. Brian argued that you want to, it's all about development, and you want to develop these guys, and you want to give him an opportunity to run the offense and all of those different things. I don't know. I just don't see, as a coach, am I really going to bypass my second string guy to go to my third string guy?
That's the thing, because then now you create, you've already said you're bringing in a portal quarterback in the offseason. Right. And do you really want to start that now?
Yeah.
Where, like, you threw an interception, so now I'm going to throw the number 3 guy out there. I think then that becomes an even bigger issue, not just getting out of that game, but locker room and the whole thing now. So I've got no. I mean, the case for playing Minchie, I get to a point, because he hasn't had the opportunity to do that. But I feel like if you were going to do that, maybe you had the conversation with Steve Angeli before the game and just say, look, if it gets to this point, we're going to put in Minchie, because we really haven't got a chance to see him do anything so far.
Yeah,
this year. So we're going to give him the opportunity. This is going to be, like his 4th quarter or whatever. Right. That kind of thing. Maybe you have that, but
you have Steven, the very first play, he throws an interception. What message are you sending if the next series you put in Minchie?
Right. Exactly.
I don't like
that's
that.
What I'm saying.
Either.
It's like then it's a negative message.
Right. I don't like that message at all.
You screwed up, the whole thing.
Right.
So, yep. So here's Javontae Jean-Baptiste, the big man, talking about the stiff arm that he had on the 60-yard blocked field goal return for a touchdown against the Cardinal.
I used to play a little running back, so I know that like when I get the ball in my hands, what to do with it if I get the opportunity. So it was fun.
I'm just imagining Javontae Jean-Baptiste as like an 11-year-old running back, and he's like a guy that we used to know, Shaq Van, who played at Eastern Michigan, played here in town for you and with Jesse at Adams High School. Like, I remember when Jesse was playing, they weren't on the same team, but here was this running back on the other team who was like a head and a half taller than everybody. It was like all these little guys out there and this big head just like running through it. That's what I imagine, like hearing Javontae Jean-Baptiste saying that he grew up playing a little bit of running back. But how do you rate that return that he had on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, it was a great return. I think I was more impressed with the tight roping of the sideline than I was with the stiff arm. I mean, he stiff armed the punter.
That tightrope on the sideline was nuts, man.
That was athletic as all get out, that part. Like, you stiff armed a punter. Like, that's not a huge deal to me. You outweigh the punter probably by 100 pounds. So that stiff arm wasn't really all that impressive. It was the tight roping of the sideline that was super impressive to me. That was awesome.
I was shocked that he stayed in bounds. I thought for sure he was going out of bounds, when he was trying to, walk that tightrope and stay in.
Oh,
and
it's impressive. Yeah.
I rated a 10, man. For a big man like that,
I forgot
to
I had
move
to rate
like
it.
that.
Yeah, 10.
10 out of 10 for me.
Absolutely.
As Jesse would say, 10 being the absolute best, 1 being the lowest, because Jesse always explains the scale of 1 to 10 to everybody when he's on the show. 10 is the best. That was the best. Javontae Jean-Baptiste's field goal block was awesome. That was fun to see.
No, that was all. And I said this in the post-game show, like, nobody deserved it more than him because of of all the players that are out of eligibility, man, did I want him to have more. Like, of all the guys, he exceeded all of my expectations coming into Notre Dame. I mean, absolutely exceeded them all. I thought he was going to be a depth piece, that kind of a thing. Nope, he was a dude, and he just got rewarded with that touchdown run. That was awesome.
Yep. By the way, did I say Eastern Michigan or Eastern Washington earlier?
Well, you said Eastern Michigan, but now he's coaching at Washington.
Now he's actually on the staff at the University of Washington.
Correct.
Our own Shaq Van from here in South Bend.
Yep,
so that's awesome too.
Yeah.
So great return by Baptiste. And by the way, we might only be halfway through rapid fire right now. I said coming into the show, we got a lot to talk about today. We're still going for a while. This is officially going to end up being, I think, the longest IB Nation sports talk we've ever done. So welcome to everyone who might be just jumping in live right now, and glad to have you aboard. We've been going at it for a while.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff coming out of this weekend that I feel all needs to be addressed on today's show. And it's like, I started this morning putting together like stuff from Stanford. And then, like I said, by the time Marcus Freeman's Zoom came around, and then with everything that happened after that, with the transfer portal afterwards, it just exploded. And we've got just a ton to talk about.
You're a busy little beaver, man.
That's right. So Notre Dame got the Legends Trophy back.
Yes, they did.
After beating Stanford. Did you know what the Legends Trophy looked like before the game?
Not a chance. I couldn't tell you what any of the trophies look like except for the jeweled shillelagh between Notre Dame and USC. I know that all 8 rivalry trophies all look different, and they're all unique. I don't know what any of them look like except for the one between USC and Notre Dame. I certainly didn't know it was just a giant bowl like that. Like, weak. I think I saw Freeman drinking Gatorade out of it.
Yes, they poured blue Gatorade into it.
Yeah, it was. I don't know.
I had no idea. I was, for some reason, imagining, like, I don't know, maybe not another shillelagh, but I was imagining some kind of, like big stick kind of thing, maybe like a sledgehammer looking thing.
Right.
I was not expecting, kind of a crystal bowl looking thing. I had never seen it. And again, like, they drank some Gatorade out of it.
It's like, okay.
When it was all said and done.
I get like kind of like the Stanley Cup, I guess. You can kind of do anything you want with it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Freeman couldn't chug it all.
Well,
is what D-Rock Irish says. So again, we'll touch on the transfer portals because we've got more people kind of jumping in late. Who was the third portal defection besides Tyree and NaNa? Zeke Correll also entered the portal today. 3 different players.
Yep.
Chris Tyree, NaNa Osafo-Mensah, and Zeke Correll all entered the portal.
Somebody asked an interesting question, and I don't know that you started or not. Nope, you didn't. So I want to ask you,
Okay.
If you're Coach Freeman, do you put a deadline on when you need to know as a Notre Dame staff whether guys are going to declare, whether they're going to opt out, whether they're going to transfer, I need to know by X. What do you think?
I mean, that soundbite that we had of him, he said that they're going to be having the conversations this week and then they're hitting the road this weekend. I would think that they would want to know relatively quickly because they're also going to start bowl practice this week.
Yep.
And you remember last year, a lot of young guys got reps in bowl practice, and we ended up seeing a lot of young guys in the bowl. And that is kind of the other side of this as well. For whatever defections you get in the portal, that means that some of these young guys that people have been clamoring for are going to get some opportunities. So I would think that I would want to know sooner or later if I'm Marcus Freeman.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want a complete deadline on it, but I would definitely want to know sooner than later so that we can start making practice plans on who's going to get reps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's transfer portal decisions are the most important. Like those are the ones that you really need to know because the guys that are going to declare for the NFL, I think we kind of know who has that decision to make, right? It's Cam Hart, it's Joe Alt, it's Audric Estime, Blake Fisher. I would say those are the 4 main guys that you need to know whether they're going to declare or not. Those decisions can go a little bit because they're not going to transfer, right? So those decisions can maybe wait a little bit. I know sometimes you got to get back, draft analysis and all that, those kinds of things. But if you're going to transfer, I need to know that this week. Like that, yeah. I need to know if you're in or you're out. I don't want to go.
And the portal opens a week from today anyway. So right. I think everyone wants to get in as soon as possible because it 100%. Gives them the best opportunity to find a new home.
Right.
So
yep, absolutely. I need to know that sooner than later. The draft stuff I'm not as worried about.
A couple of the things that I do have in here. Chris Galloway says Tyree is not a pro receiver. Love his game, but it won't translate to the NFL. Well, I disagree with that. I'll wager you. I'll put $500 down that Chris Tyree will be on an NFL roster in 5 years. I'm not saying he's going to be a star in the NFL,
sure.
But the guy can play special teams with the speed that he has, especially as a kick returner. He's got to work on the hands and sort of the vision a little bit more as a punt returner. We obviously saw that come into play a couple of times this season and just kind of making that judgment, especially when there's traffic around him and stuff like that. But Chris Tyree's going to be on an NFL roster in 5 years. I guarantee it. I'd put money on it. If there was money to be put on it someplace, I would put on it. So Chris, if you want to put your money where your mouth is, 500 big ones. I'll lay it down right now. And we'll talk in 5 years.
Hey, look, Desmond Howard had a 10-year NFL career, primarily as a return guy. Okay. He had 123 career receptions, 40 of which came in one season.
Yep.
If Desmond Howard can make a 10-year career out of the NFL being a return guy, guess what? So can Chris Tyree.
Chris says he doesn't bet on football, but I bet your favorite team's ball cap. Okay. I'll bet you a hat. And we're talking 5 years down the line, so somebody better keep track of this. And so 5 years, we're not hitting each other up for a hat, and we're going, oh, what are you talking about? But
yeah,
all right, I'll bet you a hat.
I like it.
Mark that down. 5 years, Chris Tyree.
I like it.
I'm just gonna go. I've got 5 years to pick out a new hat, basically. Coach D's burner says playing in the bowl game does not affect redshirt eligibility. Correct. That is correct. You can play 4 games in the regular season plus a 5th game in the bowl and still keep your eligibility.
Correct.
So as long as you haven't already gone over.
Christopher's a Cowboys fan, by the way. So
nice. Nice.
You can just go in the closet and send him one.
Chris, then, I mean, we might just have to exchange Christmas cards.
This might be now. This might be win-win. You can buy each other a Cowboys hat.
That's right. I like it. All right. So where was I?
I don't know.
So after Michigan got the interception at the end of their game to seal the win over Ohio State, there were a lot of Notre Dame fans piling on, comparing the interception that DJ Brown didn't make at the end of Ohio State's final touchdown drive to the one that Michigan did make. Fair or foul?
If it was like a scale of 1 to 10, it'd be like a 6.5, 7. Fair, I guess. Because yes, did they make the interception and Notre Dame didn't? Yes, that's actually true. And you can boil it down to that, and that's fine. But the Michigan interception was 1,000 times easier.
Yes.
Than the Notre Dame interception.
That was going to be my biggest point. I would like to see so many of these armchair yahoos.
Yeah.
And if you're one of them out there, you're an armchair yahoo. If you're all over DJ Brown about this.
Right.
Like, it's easy. Like, put on a pair of shoulder pads and a tight jersey and a helmet, and then go try to make that play that DJ Brown had to make when he's going up like this. One, it is not easy just to lift your arms when you've got the jersey and the shoulder pads on like that. And two, the still shot where, the ball is going through DJ Brown's fingertips makes it look a hell of a lot easier than if you actually watch the video, the replay of that play, because the way he had to move just to get there and then make the jump and try to time it and get it in. Everyone wishes he would have brought it in. If he had, we're having a lot different conversation right now. But you're absolutely right. The Michigan play was a heck of a lot easier than the one that DJ
It went
Brown
right into
had.
his midsection.
Yes.
He didn't even have to use his hands. So it's a completely different type of interception.
Going down for a ball like that. Like, I played outfield, like in high school, and it's a little bit different, obviously, but coming in and toward the ball like that, in, down, and toward the ball, to me, is a heck of a lot easier than trying to go up for a ball like that.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Try lifting your hands over your head with shoulder pads on. Like,
it ain't easy.
It ain't easy, man.
No.
I'm just saying.
Not at all.
Especially when you're wearing, well, never mind. But it's a completely different skill set on the interception. Was it an interception play that we're talking about? That's the only similarity that there is. The type of interception is completely different.
Yeah. I mean, Irish AJ says X makes that play 10 out of 10 times. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But he wasn't the one who was in position to make the play. Unfortunately. We're talking about Watts as an All-American, probably, versus DJ Brown, who, look, the other side of this whole thing, and again, like talking about guys coming back and transfer portals and all this different kind of stuff. I mean, look at where that safety position was coming into the season and all the question marks that we had with it. Like, could DJ Brown have played better this year? Of course. But there are a lot of other guys who could have played better this year as well. And I don't know where they would be without DJ Brown, again, considering the lack of depth that they had there coming into the year.
Yeah. Yep. Completely agree.
I'm just being fair to him. I'm not saying that he was, great and everything else. I'm being fair to him and what he brought the team, because they needed AJ Brown. They obviously, everyone wishes he would have made that play, especially AJ Brown wishes he would have made that play. And that's what I guarantee you. There's no one in the world who wishes it. I think I said DJ Brown. I was thinking wide receiver, not safety. There's no one in the world who wishes they would have made that play like DJ Brown. I guarantee you that.
No doubt about that.
Should Ryan Day be on the hot seat after a third straight loss to Michigan?
100% no. As much as a D-bag as I think that he is, he should not be on the hot seat for losing to Michigan 3 years in a row. Now, look, that's their biggest rival. You got to win that game. I get it, but you can't get fired. Like, I'm sorry. He still has an amazing overall win-loss record. You can't fire him for that. I just, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
This is an interesting one. I generally agree with what you're saying, because he is He is 1-3 against Michigan. He
Yep.
is 40-0 versus the rest of the Big Ten, which is just insane.
Yes.
And the big thing is next year, he might still get into the playoff this year, depending on what happens during conference championship weekend this week. They're probably going to end up maybe being just outside, especially
I
considering
think they probably will be
they
outside
got
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah.
again, we'll wait and see. A couple teams lose and you never know. But at the same time, like John Cooper only beat Michigan twice in 13 years when he was at Ohio State. And he lost like 5 of the last 6 times they played. And then they moved on to John Tressel. And that was the knock on Cooper. Good coach, won a lot of games, but he lost to Michigan all the time. And that was one of the nails in his coffin. Now, it's going to be different when this playoff expands to 12 next year. Because they're
Big
going
time.
like, if all they're doing is losing to Michigan, they're going to get in every
time.
Yeah.
Every time. And they'll probably advance to a certain degree. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah.
You might end up seeing 3 Ohio State Michigan games in a year. You might see regular season, Big Ten championship, and the playoff.
Yeah. He's going to have plenty more opportunities. That's for sure. So, yeah. And Christopher Calloway says it sounds like Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly didn't get fired from Notre Dame, though. So, I just, if this becomes a chronic problem over a decade, like it did
But
with
Brian
Cooper,
Kelly also beat his rival. He beat USC pretty regularly.
that is very true. He definitely benefited from not having to play them when they were good, but he still beat them. He still beat them. I'm not taking that away from him. Still beat them. Had a lot of trouble with Stanford early on, but be that as it may. So yeah, he doesn't get fired. Now, again, like I said, if this turns into a decade-long problem, that's a different conversation.
Right.
But it's not going to be because of exactly what you said in the expanded playoff.
Yep.
So, yeah. And who's to say Michigan's going to continue to be good? Like, they're probably going to lose their entire coaching staff in a month. So, good luck.
Yeah, true too. So after ESPN's Pete Thamel got threats from Michigan fans for his reporting of the sign stealing scandal, he did his live shots during College Game Day this weekend from inside Michigan Stadium rather than being surrounded by fans outside the stadium. And it prompted Michigan shill Desmond Howard to say this, quote, "What the hell is Pete in the stadium for? Put your big boy pants on and do it in the crowd like you have been," end quote. Reese Davis said he got from the lunatic fringe some threats. So what do you think of Desmond calling out Pete Thamel like that?
Desmond's got a big mouth considering he's standing there surrounded by Michigan fans and he's like a god to Michigan fans. So, big. That's like picking a fight with somebody with all your boys behind you.
Right.
Hold me back. It's like, come on,
beer
dude,
muscles,
shut your mouth.
It's like,
exactly
makes you brave. It's like, oh yeah, man. Got a couple by the way, I love the boycott, Love the boycott that Michigan fans threatened but didn't go through with.
Seriously.
But they were all there. They were all there to cheer on Desmond.
Yeah. It's embarrassing is what it is. Desmond is such a partisan, I'll say it as nicely as possible. He is such a partisan human being when it comes to any kind of analysis that he does that involves Michigan, and just needs to shut up. He just needs to shut up. He's not a professional, and to call out a colleague like that live on the air, that's a whole other level of low class to me.
That's the thing. Like, Desmond Howard was a professional athlete, and he's in his home environment. Not the same for Pete Thamel. Pete Thamel is like, he does not look like, and this is not a shot at Pete Thamel, but he doesn't look like an overly athletic guy. Like, it's
just
like,
saying.
Why would you, like, if you're Pete Thamel and you're getting these threats, why would you put yourself in that situation? And I understand ESPN for not wanting to put him in that situation. And I just thought it was for a guy who is a professional athlete and who is supposed to be now a professional broadcaster. Desmond has done game day for a long time now to call out your colleague, and two, doing it on national TV like that is just low rent, man. It's just very low rent. Desmond Howard should be better than that. And it was just uncalled for. It was just
and I have no problem with Pete Thamel doing what he did, because you're telling me that, okay, first of all, they're going to send threats to me. And whether those are founded or unfounded doesn't matter, because you're asking me to stand in a crowd of a bunch of liquored up fools. And who knows? It only takes one moron. It only takes one moron to do something. And yeah, I'm going to the stadium, man. I'm not going to sit out here with these idiots.
Because
no way.
How much security can you put around him to protect him at that point?
Right.
And you're talking about, a couple thousand, however many fans out there. Like you said, it takes one guy, and you can't see all of them.
Yeah, exactly. So there is no chance that I would have been standing in the middle of that crowd. No chance. So yeah, and something. I mean, it's ESPN, so they're probably not going to do anything, but something should be done to Desmond. Fine him, suspend him. They should do something, because you don't call out a colleague like that. And it wasn't even like a colleague on another network.
Right.
It's the guy that you literally work with every week. Like, that's messed up.
I agree. I completely agree. agree. I'm like, what's that relationship now after he calls him out on national TV like that? Right. And at least the other guys, like Reese Davis, was like, well, look, Desmond, come on. Like, have a little bit of sense here.
All of them, they were like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. They were like,
dude,
is it really coming out of your mouth right now?
Like, because I expect stupid stuff, to come out of a certain guy's mouth on that bench. Not necessarily. Well, I guess I do expect it from him, but like, dude, that's just low. That was just a low ball comment.
Our final topic of the night. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Mike Elko is Texas A&M's new head coach.
It sucks, because that's where Notre Dame goes for game 1 of next year, and that's where they're coming up here in game 1, I think, or at least the following year, right? That sucks, man. I was really hoping that it was going to be like Stoops or somebody like that I feel really good about. I really like Mike Elko as a head coach and as a program builder, and it may not happen, as quickly as game 1 next year, right? He's walking into an S storm, as they say, but give him a year, give him a couple years. Like, I think he could turn this group around. I really do think that, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So I don't like it at all. I'm glad they're getting this A&M series out of the way, but I think he's going to be dangerous down there. I was very happy when it was Stoops that was going to get the job.
I think in the long run, he probably will be. I think, like, for the short term, season opener, new head coach, I would still rather take my chances with that going into the season than even, midway through the season. It'll be different, though. They should be definitely better by the time they come up here to make the return trip. So,
yes,
I mean, he's obviously a good head coach, and we saw that with lesser talent at Duke, even though, he had a really good quarterback at Duke, obviously. There wasn't a whole lot else around him offensively, but that's going to change. There's some talent down there, assuming they stay, because that's going to be a big question as well. What happens to Texas A&M with the transfer portal? Because, it's obviously blowing up here on day one for a lot of people. There's all kinds of tweets and reports and everything else going out about transfer portals. I did have to laugh, though. Right before we came on, there was a video of the introductory press conference, and it's like Elko and these administrators and all these people, like they're arm in arm, and they're singing whatever the A&M fight song is. And it looks a little bit odd. It looks a little bit odd, but hey,
man,
they're all in. And I did see that, he's got his contract incentivized. It is all.
Did you see it? Did you read it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be had.
There is,
friends.
There is.
And any incentive that he hits, they add a year to his contract,
yeah,
which I thought was very interesting. The postseason ones.
And I mean, they obviously have a good feel for him because of the time that he spent there at A&M as defensive coordinator before he went to Duke. So, I mean, good for him, but he is jumping into the SEC as well.
Yeah.
We'll see if he can do it. But like, for all the resources, all the money, and everything else that A&M has, it has been proven over a long period of time that it is still really tough to win down there in Aggie land. So
you see that buyout? $6.5 million.
A lot lower than this one too. All right. Well, we didn't make 3. We made 2 hours though.
We made 2. And that's definitely a record for IB Nation Sports Talk. So you're welcome, people. You're welcome.
Right. Glad to have you here with us today. Got more shows, of course, coming up during the week. I'm going to be gone for a couple of days. We're going to Tennessee for Notre Dame women's basketball. ACC, SEC Challenge on Wednesday. We're traveling tomorrow night. I think, was it you and Jesse on Wednesday?
I have
Does that sound
no
right?
idea. I'm going to have to look.
All right. I have to look at the schedule. I believe it's you
Yeah.
and I on Thursday. There'll be more shows. There'll be more talking. Of course, Brian, Ryan, and everybody else will have other shows going on. Chris Galloway, 5 years from now, 2028. I am eyeballing a couple of new hats. So, yeah.
Just saying.
That's right. By the way, Hannah Hidalgo, another Rookie of the Week honor for her today.
Yep. And men's soccer makes it to the Elite Eight, and they're going to host IU for a chance to go to the Final Four. IU's a darn good soccer team. So it should be a lot of fun, probably in the snow.
All right. Hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. We appreciate you being here today. And, of course, subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platforms. And we will talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.